All right, my name's Dallas, and I just wanted to share with you guys how we have been selling freeze dryers in our family's little store and just share some tips and things that we've been learning along the way. So I've tentatively titled this How to Sell More Freeze Dryers as a Small Business, or how local small businesses can compete with the big guys to sell more freeze dryers. So my in-laws started selling freeze dryers after they bought their own and really loved how easy it was for them to build up an emergency supply of food, especially with all the instability of supply chains, especially up here in Canada. And they just loved how it worked, and they wanted to share that with our neighbors, with our town, with our friends, with the province. And that being prepared isn't selfish because it actually helps everyone else who wasn't as prepared when the supplies are limited to be able to get what they need, because we aren't rushing to the stores and competing with them. We already have what we need. We are already prepared, and they believed that if they could help more people be prepared, that would just put us all in a better position if we ever run into a situation like was starting to happen in the last couple of years, as we've been seeing. So they applied to Harvest Right, became distributors, and started selling freeze dryers through their already existing little online store. You can kind of see some of the things that they were selling before and are still selling behind me here. Now, they started selling freeze dryers in the summer when demand was really high, but as we got into the fall, demand started to drop off. And so at that point, me and my wife joined in on the operation. We have a background in video and in marketing, and so we created a robust commercial campaign for the freeze dryers. And in the process, we've learned a lot about selling freeze dryers and really had a lot of success reinvigorating and actually stabilizing the freeze dryer sales all through the year, even to match what was happening sales-wise in the summer some months. And so these are some of the highlights that have enabled us to continue to sell freeze dryers all year round. All right, so let's dive right in. All right, so the first thing we need to do is make the process of buying a freeze dryer as easy as possible. It needs to be easy to learn about freeze drying. It needs to be easy to find your freeze dryers that you're selling, easy to find you, easy to find out that you're selling them, easy to find out that, or easy to learn about the freeze dryers, and then easy to actually buy the freeze dryers. And this might seem obvious, but it is amazing to me. Like sometimes we're doing ads, and occasionally we'll get somebody who sees our ads that's outside of our market area for whatever reason, and they'll say, hey, do you ship to wherever I am, to another province, another state? And I have to say, no, I don't. And so I'll go onto the Harvest Right site and look through their list of distributors. And it is amazing to me how many of these distributors make it really, really hard to buy a freeze dryer from them, much less even find out that they are even selling freeze dryers. And so I've been looking all over the United States, all over Canada. This was true of us before we started to really refine the process, that for a buyer coming in who was interested in buying a freeze dryer, it was actually really difficult. And in many places in the country, most places that you can buy a freeze dryer in person, it's very difficult to find out that you actually can. And a lot of people actually think they can't. And that means that there are a lot of freeze dryer sales that could be yours in your area that are just slipping through the cracks. There are probably people in, like a 10-minute drive from your business location, from your house, that are searching, can I buy a freeze dryer, a Harvest Right medium freeze dryer near me, and they are not finding any results. And so they go to the Harvest Right site and they buy through Harvest Right, or they don't buy a freeze dryer at all. And that's a shame, right? Because I'm a big believer in when you can, and when the option is, quality options for buying local and keeping that chunk of money local to your economy, I think just has all kinds of benefits for local economies. And I would rather see that money kept local than shipped off, halfway across the country. So how do we do this? How do we make it easy to learn about freeze dryers? How do we make ourselves easy to find? How do we make it easy to buy a freeze dryer from us, or how do you make it easy to buy a freeze dryer from you? The first step is you actually have to give attention to freeze dryers. And so what do I mean by this? I mean, you cannot rely on Harvestright to sell your freeze dryers for you. You know, I really appreciate Harvestright and what they're doing, but really they want the online sales for themselves. I mean, if you go on the Harvestright website and you take a look at, you know, go to harvestright.com and you go on there, realistically, how much traffic that's coming here to buy a freeze dryer is going to find its way to you? Almost zero. This webpage is designed, they've got the Find Us in Stores. That adds legitimacy to Harvestright as a brand. Nobody's clicking on that. Hardly anyone, as far as the volume of traffic coming to the site, is clicking on that. It's all about selling the freeze dryer from them because they get a larger chunk of the profit for doing that, and so that's in their best interest. They're not advertising for you. You know, and we do get a trickle of buyers that come through the Find Us in Store button and then give us a call. But I can guarantee that the amount of sales you're missing because they're coming here and they are not clicking on that. And even when you click on there, all they get is a phone number. And for a lot of people, that's just not going to happen. That's just not going to happen. They've got to actually leave this web page. There's no link. They've got to go into Google and they've got to search. And a lot of your guys' websites that I've been looking at are hard to find when I do a Google search, much less if I'm looking for freeze dryers connected to these businesses that are listed here. But you cannot rely on Harvestright to do the work for you. You've actually got to put in some footwork and groundwork yourself, you know, and prove to your buyer that you actually are interested in actually selling these things and are an actual, real, legitimate distributor. The other thing that you've got going on is you've got these big chains that are starting to pick up the freeze dryers. And now in our area, ironically, even though there's some big chains that supposedly carry them, they're impossible to find. But they grab everybody's attention because when they're looking through that list on the Harvestright site, that's what they see, the names they recognize. Big chains have an advantage over smaller distributors because people like to buy from people they like and trust buying from. And they've bought from these big chains before, so that feels comfortable. Now, there are some distinct advantages that small distributors actually have over a big chain, however. And if we take advantage of those, I think you can beat the big chains in almost every way in terms of actually gaining attention and selling freeze dryers. So the first thing to do that, the first step to do that, is to understand your buyer. You need to understand who's buying from you. Why are people buying freeze dryers? How do they want to buy a freeze dryer? How are they looking for that? How did they come across it? How are they going about trying to buy a freeze dryer? We also need to recognize that buying a freeze dryer is a big purchase for most people. It's a really big stretch for them. They've been saving for it. It's not something for most people. You know, there are people that are buying freeze dryers as a Mother's Day gift, but most of the time people are saving. They need to think about it. They need to feel confident in their purchase, which is one of the advantages of being local compared to buying on the Harvestright site, because a lot of people want to come and feel like they're talking to a real person who can actually help them, who can answer their questions, where they can come and see the unit in person. Even though we've offered some free delivery options from our store, a lot of people actually like to come and pick it up themselves just because they want to see it before they get it home. And it's a big purchase, so we need to help them. We need to understand that the buyers that are buying these units need to feel confident. This is a new technology to most people's minds. They're not familiar with it, and so they want to be reassured that what they're buying is real and it does what they think it does. And they also need to be educated that it does maybe more than they think it does. So we need to specialize in helping them with freeze dryers. And so one of the best ways to do this, and to do this well, is with a dedicated web page. Now, maybe you already have a website, you've got a product listing for your freeze dryers. I know a lot of you don't even have that, but maybe you do have, a website, a web store. You've got the freeze dryers listed. That's a good start, but that's not what I mean by a dedicated web page. I mean like an actual page that is, like if I'm selling, if I'm selling a DVD or a book, it doesn't require the same amount of reassurance from the buyer. I can put up a product page, put up a short description, put up a couple pictures, maybe a review. That's good enough. They know they're getting the book. They can spend their $20 and feel fairly confident in it. When they're looking at something that's $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $9,000 now with the extra large sometimes, they want a lot more confidence than that. And so an actual dedicated, basically a mini website page that's got answers to all the questions they could possibly want answered, got all kinds of pictures, all kinds of video links, things like that, that really is designed to help them feel confident in what they're buying. You go to Apple's website and you're buying a phone or a laptop. They don't just have a product page. They've got a page before the product page that sells you on the computer you're buying, helps you feel good about it, helps you understand the ins and outs of why I would or maybe don't want this computer. If they didn't have that page, they wouldn't be able to charge the prices they do for those computers, because people wouldn't feel confident in it. So a dedicated page on your website at minimum, like that is a must. The other thing this does is it really helps you rank in Google searches. If you actually have a really well done web page with all the information on it, all that kind of stuff, that's going to help. The way Google ranks their web pages is on the satisfaction. They've got ways to kind of measure satisfaction that somebody got the answer they wanted when they clicked on the link. And so the better the web page as far as answering those questions and giving the potential customer, the potential buyer, reassurance on that they're getting the answers they want, the better your web page is going to do in Google. And so having something more like more than just a basic product page or just a phone number, that's going to help you rank organically. And then ideally, you would even go a step beyond that, and you would have a dedicated URL. Sounds a little bit scary. It sounds techie. It's not that big of a deal. How much does a URL cost? Like $12 a year, something like that, depending which one you buy. How many freeze dryers do you need to sell to justify $12 a year, right? One, and suddenly that is a make sense expense. So I would, if I were you, I would be finding a URL name that says, very specifically the freeze dryers, we sell freeze. So for us, for example, our family store is called Merchant Ship. But we have a URL, like a special website with this special web page on it that directs people to buy from us, called Freeze Drying Alberta, right? So that ranks better in Google, just that search title. It's easier to remember. When people see it, they're like, these guys sell freeze dryers. And it goes a long ways to actually selling more freeze dryers when you just take that extra step. And it's so cheap, it really doesn't cost that much or take that much effort to put that together. So if you're going to go the extra effort and actually want to sell more freeze dryers, get a dedicated URL. Second to last, you need to add some humanity to your brand or your company that you're selling freeze dryers to. So you need a mission, something that says, we are not a big box store. We are not cold and impersonal. If I go into a big box store, I don't really expect the employees there to know much about freeze drying. You know, even if it is a family-owned brand with somebody who does know freeze drying, I don't expect that. And so I'm looking for something, especially with a purchase like a freeze dryer, somebody who's actually more knowledgeable, who can answer my questions, because I feel like I've got complicated and hard questions, and I've got all kinds of things I don't know. I know I don't know what I don't know, and so I want somebody who can really help me walk me through that process. And I'm not really confident that in a big brand box store chain they're going to be able to do that for me. And so having a persona about your business that says, hey, we're local, we're small, and we specialize, and we are knowledgeable. We use the freeze dryers, and the people you're talking to use freeze dryers, and they're going to be able to answer your questions. That goes a long ways. Plus, a lot of these people that are buying freeze dryers are really big on local. You know, normally having, you know, local business as a, you know, key pillar of your business brand is not really that strong of a selling point. But in this case, I think it actually does speak volumes in terms of what people expect, that they're actually looking for something a little bit more boutique because they want those answers. They need that reassurance. And so, you know, for us, we created a mission that we put on our web pages where we talk about, hey, we're a family-run business. We use the freeze dryer. The reason we're selling it is because, you know, that story I told at the beginning, the reason we're even selling freeze dryers is because we really wanted our neighbors to have that. We believe in creating a food secure Alberta, and we want to have as many people be secure, and we believe that when we create that, we're going to have a more stable community and a more stable economy. And you know, we just really believe in what these can do for our province, and so that we have a mission to just equip families to be self-reliant and to be food secure. And as part of that, you know, unique positioning statement that we created, and these unique positioning statements, by the way, are one of the places where you can really stand out as different than a big box store. So, or whoever you're competing with, Harvest Right themselves, right? Harvest Right is your competitor when it comes to online sales. And so think about what their strengths are, but then also think about what their weaknesses are and see if you can lean into what's missing, right? We're small, we're local, we're family operated. We use the freeze dryer. We really love this stuff, and we have a passion for our community, and actually a mission behind what we think this freeze dryer can do for our community. We have freeze dryers in stock. That's a huge seller. If you can have freeze dryers in stock, that's another thing about a big box store. I'm not convinced that if I walk into a big box store on any given day, they're going to have a freeze dryer there. And so I want to know that they're in stock so I can come take a look, but also so I can pick up. Having freeze dryers in stock is a huge problem. A lot of these bigger brands are almost always saying, even on the off season, that you know, it's 4, 5, 6, 12 weeks out before they'll ship, because they don't keep them in stock, and so they only order them in when somebody else orders them in. Whereas we can get them out right away. You can have it as quick as you want. And actually having them in stock, even if their people are waiting a similar amount of time, people really like knowing that what they're buying is actually, that you actually have it. It's one of those reassurance things. So those are huge things that we've implemented that have made a big difference in, I think, creating conversions of people feeling confident to buy from us as opposed to buying from somebody else. And lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that you can run you know, a marketing campaign. You can run Google or Facebook or Instagram ads. Your demographic that's typically buying freeze dryers is usually going to be on Facebook, and they are searching on Google, right? Now that goes beyond the scope of this video, other than to say that yes, a well-done marketing campaign, specifically Google and Facebook. I'm dabbling, going to be dabbling with YouTube soon, ads. can go a long way to really driving really good leads for your freeze dryer sales. But you do need to be careful with it. It's easy to spend a lot of money on advertising and not be getting results when you're new at it, or when you're not quite sure what you're doing. Maybe I'll make another video about that, go into a little bit more detail on that if people are interested in that. It can boost your organic ranking in Google. We've had a lot of success through Facebook, Instagram, and Google Ads. And online advertising is another one of those areas where a small business actually can outcompete the big guys, because a big business is spreading their budget across a large area. And so, Harvest Right is doing a lot of advertising. They're doing a lot of advertising to drive traffic to their website, to make people aware of freeze drying. But they have to spread that budget across the entire country, if not the entire world. And so in any given area, the amount that they're willing to spend is actually pretty low, because they're spending so broadly. Whereas as a small distributor in a local area, you can outcompete and outbid somebody like Harvest Right or another of the big chains. You can outbid them in your local area fairly reasonably. And so that's an area where you can actually beat them out and get in front of a lot of traffic. Because like I said at the beginning of the video, there are people out there looking for you guys. There are people who want to buy freeze dryers locally, and right now they cannot find you. And so I hope that this video has been helpful, and that you can take some of these things, put them into action, and together we can start equipping more people to be food secure, to be self-reliant, and be initiated into the wonderful world of freeze drying. All right, I have taken enough of your time. Thank you for joining me. I hope you found this helpful. Maybe I'll make another video for you guys soon. All right, bye.